Hi, I'm Laura and I am ADHD AF. I'm also time blind AF. And in this episode, we'll be talking about time blindness, but there will also be some swearing, some ridiculousness, a lot of cackling, but we may cover some topics that some might find triggering. So please do have a read of the description before listening on, where you will also find a link signposting you to resources for support. I've just turned up 25 minutes late to an episode about time blindness.
Oh, it's so on brand.
You literally couldn't write this shit. And I'll be honest with you, this will be one of those episodes in which nobody ever sees the video content because I'm sat in my bed. But anybody in the ADHDAF podcast community will be more than used to seeing me in my leopard print dressing gown of a morning. Usually I do get dressed and have a microphone and all sorts to record episodes, but not today because yesterday was Flackstock. I just used the very last of the spoons I had in my physical body to wash my body because my arms are so tired that I couldn't even contemplate getting all the recording equipment out just now. So you've got me as it is. And to be honest, the sound quality might even be better because I'm in this room and the Ride or Die fans love the authentic chaoticness of this podcast.
The pirate radio, but it's the way, isn't it? We justify it with the being pirate radio. Yeah. So it's like rough around the edges. I just like the way as well. We were so terrified, both me and Beth, about being on the podcast because of being podcast virgins. And you said, we'll just honestly pretend it's just like a regular chat with me. Well, this couldn't be more like a regular chat because I'm seeing you in your dressing gown just with your headphones on. So honestly, this is definitely makes me feel at ease, maybe too at ease.
Serious. Well, this is the thing. Nobody's going to be any more shambolic than me. So let's dive in. So I am joined today by two wonderful volunteer facilitators of ADHDAF Charity. The wonderful Kate in Bristol and Beth in Ayr in Scotland. We're going to be having a little chinwag about the topic of time blindness, which is something that many ADHDers struggle with because time blindness is the topic of the September peer support groups of ADHDAF Charity. And both of these legends are having their first ever support group.
I'm Kate from Bristol and my very first support group, which is that in the 3rd of September in Bristol in the Tobacco Factory in Bedminster. It's a really cool venue. We've got the loft space, so it's super private, so people can relax and hopefully feel in a safe space to open up and just say as much or as little as they would like to. I'll be trying really hard to give them the space to be allowed to talk, so we're not to talk over them. Right, must focus on that. I feel like the charity and these support groups are an extension of the stuff that works really well with the community. Feeling safe with like-minded people. It's so liberating and refreshing to be in a place where you don't feel judged and people relate to you. When we have felt so other for so many years in our lives, it's just lovely when you have that shared connection. Even if your traits and the way that your ADHD presents, which, well, as we know, is so different and kind of depends on the individual, you still have that compassion and empathy for a fellow ADHDer. I mean, you'll understand this, especially Laura. We both refer to ourselves as techno-tits, and we much prefer in real life connection as opposed to kind of walls of text. Of course,
yes,
it's everyone's preference to kind of what they prefer and stuff like that. But yeah, for me personally, I really love connecting with people. I would like to be able to do that in my hometown.
You made reference to the fact that, like me, you are a very wordy person and how you want to try and make sure that people get the chance to speak. And that can be really, really difficult because often I'll sort of fill the gaps. Oh, okay, well, I'll just keep talking because they seem to not want to talk. And then the way that can be from the other side is that actually the person is waiting for me to finish to speak and I'm waiting for them to speak to finish, and we sort of get a bit lost in that loop. But the truth is we're empowering the facilitators as much as the attendees. We've all got it. We need to be compassionate to ourselves and our attendees, like as a whole. We need to be compassionate as a community and understand, for example, at any of our groups, not just Kate's, or if I, bulldoze in again with a bingo game or whatever, it has to be okay for us to have ADHD. Beth just cycled 288 friggin' miles in 3 days from Ayr to Wrexham for the big ADHD fundraiser. Well done, Beth.
Ooh.
Well done. And thank you. I feel embarrassed now to be like, oh my God, my aching bones from doing Flaxstock yesterday when you just cycled nearly 300 bloody miles last week. How are you? Are you achy? You okay?
I'm good, yeah. I had a sports massage on Wednesday.
Honestly, you were incredible. You were all incredible. Like, you were really up against it with those conditions. My God, the hills, the rain, the everything. Just well bloody done. Absolutely inspirational, and so much money raised. Thank you so much. What made me think about that, there is a link. So we all got there at the finish line, and I'll check with her. I'm sure she won't mind me saying, but Claire had lost her key to her car, and so we were trying to figure out getting back. And when I got in the back of the taxi with Claire, she was quite down on herself, and I was just like, for goodness sake, Claire, you've just done all of this organisation. You've been like point A to point B, came and picked me up somewhere along the way, get to Runcorn Station, do this, do that, all of this stuff. Yes, you've lost your key, but you've misplaced it. It's going to be in the room. And even if you'd lost it, and you had to call somebody out to let you in the vehicle, like, it has to be okay that you've got ADHD. Like, it really does. We have to give ourselves that compassion. So I love that you said that, Kate. And there was another thing that I really wanted to talk about that you said, but actually I've talked so much I've forgotten what the point was.
There we go.
That was it. We understand that some people prefer and do feel very connected online. Some people feel like they are able to express themselves better without being in person, or have different commitments or conditions that make it difficult to go out and connect in person. But my feeling is that there are so many amazing online spaces. ADHD Adult UK has an incredible free Discord server with all of the resources, all of the moderators, 24 hours a day. So, you know, we know that we can always send people that are looking for that to that space, confidently knowing that they're going to be looked after. ADHD UK have really fantastic webinars going on all the time. There is so much incredible online stuff. So to anybody who is disappointed that we're not doing online stuff, please know it's just because there is a literal wealth of it. So we are trying to do something different for people that do want to connect in real life. And actually, even for people that don't, it could be interesting to see what you gain from doing something that you wouldn't normally do. I know I really don't feel like going to grief support group ever, but each group has been really, really beneficial. There is something to be said for that. Anyway, I'll take a breath and let wonderful Beth tell me about herself and her group.
I'm Beth. I'm in Ayr in Scotland. I'll be starting a group 2nd of September at 48 Newmarket Street in Ayr. Any kind of support or help for adults with ADHD in Ayrshire, maybe even Scotland, is just pretty dire. About a year and a half ago, I decided I really wanted to start a support group. Didn't really know where to start with it. So decided to do a bit of a coaching course because I thought it would help me improve my knowledge. Just as I was finishing that, you guys announced that you were going to be starting to fund support groups. And I was like, this is just so serendipitous. Like, I just need to get in on this. I took part in the big ADHD fundraiser. So that started from Ayr. And it just felt like, I was like, everything is pointing towards just get this group started.
Yes.
I've been part of the community since it started. I'm just very hopeless online.
You and me both, kids. Well, all three of us, actually.
I did take part in the charity fundraiser last year that Darren organised. It highlighted how great it is when you get ADHDers together. When you get us all in a room together, amazing things happen. And I just want to be able to have that in my local area and help people help each other feel seen and feel like they've got a community. It's
all about community. And to have local community in actual local areas, I just think that is invaluable. It's not just a place for support, but can be a route for great change, I think. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything. And I do have to laugh, you know, not only did our Darren add extra miles to this year's fundraiser, but he went from literally the flattest cycle known to man, cycling to Amsterdam. And then you're in all of these hills. Like, I have to say, the tales from when you all cycled Lake Windermere, I've never heard anything like it. You could say
it's quite all or nothing, which
It It's the whole thing. It always plays out like that, whether it's online interaction, in-person stuff, or cycling nearly 300 miles. You literally are just watching ADHD play out again and again and
Continuous
again.
contradictions all the time.
And much like being late for this Time Blindness recording. So let's talk a little bit about time blindness, as that's what we're actually here to do. Although I would really like to talk to you about Mel C's DJ set at Blackstock last night.
I saw a little bit of that. It's amazing.
We'll come back to that.
Actually, really quickly, I feel like it's so important to be able to have these support groups when they are waiting and feeling so hopeless and lost. And I hope this can help to feel less alone in that time. Maybe learn in the process some kind of ways to little coping strategies. The diagnosis gives validation, but we still have to kind of find ways to cope with our ADHD regardless.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yesterday, I had different pieces of ADHD awareness from the online community that I had all over the tent to kind of intersperse with stuff. Look at the shiny thing. Here's some information.
Business and pleasure.
But yeah, like, come here. You won't want to look at this like jazzy hat. But actually, did you know? One of the comments was from Maria in the community, and she'd written, just because you know the reason why you behave in a certain way, it doesn't mean you can just stop doing it. Like, that's the thing, right? So yes, we can have the validation and we can have the information, and in really doing that self-inventory, accepting that the same kind of struggles are going to keep tripping us up, we can try to put systems in place to best support ourselves. However, I still turned up 25 minutes late to this recording. Like, there are things that are going to happen, and we need to be in spaces with people who can help us eradicate that shame, because that shame spiral can also make our struggles worse, but can be really detrimental to our mental health, well-being, and the rest. Can cause devastation. To be understood and held and to drop that shame is absolutely everything. The other point is self-diagnosis is valid.
Totally.
You know, a lot of the people that I met yesterday were like, well, I'm on a list, so I think I've got it, and I don't know if I've got it. It's really, really hard. I always go to great pains to say, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not any kind of authority in this, but I can tell you now that if you believe that you have ADHD, then I believe that you have ADHD. Self-diagnosis is valid.
To be able to have something that helps others and it might help you is only a good thing. That's the whole thing about these groups. And a friend of mine said to me, there's someone I know who's been waiting for ages, so she doesn't have a diagnosis. Would she still be welcome?
Yes.
The self-doubt that creeps in when sometimes when you don't. Yeah, like we have that anyway, even if you've got the all singing all dancing, certificate. So when you don't, it couldn't be more apt for these people.
100%, because like you said, like, not only is it cathartic, not only is it validating, but as we've said, to have that shame spiral, to have that doubt, to not have support, the knock-on effect on our mental health will further exacerbate our ADHD symptoms. If you're not sleeping well, if you're not eating, if you're not looking after yourself in any way, your ADHD is going to be on fire, and round and round and round we go. At the end of the day, that BBC research came out that there was over 500,000 people in the UK on waiting lists for assessment for ADHD, and some of whom could be waiting 10 years, depending on where you are based. Please, if you suspect you have ADHD, come to the groups. That's what they're for. They're not only for people that have a diagnosis, that have treatment, that have support networks. They are for them as well. But all of us together can support each other. So please come. Even if you just are curious and think you might have it, just come along, because you are very, very, very welcome. I've ranted.
No, you haven't.
Let's talk about time blindness. It's a term often used to describe a person's inability to properly sense the passing of time. It's not a technical diagnosis, but it is a very real symptom of ADHD. For people like us, our brain can't keep track of time in any linear fashion, and many of us experience time in just the two time zones of now or not now. So in real life, it can mean completely underestimating how long things will take, losing track of time completely, running late, overcompensating by being very, very early, And even in terms of things like waiting mode, for example, if we're so worried that we have something ahead of us that can eat up the whole day, sort of stuck in a kind of paralysis, waiting for the time to pass. So yeah, time is really, really tricky. Anybody who came to the Too Much tour will know my story about the hat that took me 3.5 years to make. I really thought that at most it was a year, but what's a similar story to that is the wonderful John from ADHD, or Just a Bit Weird. On the episode where they interviewed me, they told a story about how they needed to do their car tax or something like that. I can't remember how many years, but it was even longer than the 3.5. I think it was a really long time, right? Not to incriminate, and I'm terrible with numbers, but it was a really, really long time. And the saddest part in it is that both of us had that same experience of saying every single day, oh, I must do that today. I must do that today. For years. Every single day, with absolutely no concept of how much time is passing. Do you struggle with time blindness, Beth? And if so, how does it show up in you?
Time blindness is probably one of my biggest ADHD things. I'm pretty much late to everything. And I try and combat it by being early, but which was much, much easier when I was younger and I didn't have other stuff to do. And so I was always like chronically early to everything as a kid because my parents were always late and I hated that feeling. But now that I realise that there's all this stuff as an adult that you have to do, I'm always either just rushing in on time or a little bit late.
And it's when you rush in really sweaty.
Yeah.
It's like always like bulging vein out of my head, sweaty top lip, like eyes bulging kind of thing.
Yeah. And if I can achieve something in a certain amount of time once, I think I'll be able to do it like that forever. And so like I go to pole twice a week. It's exactly 30 minutes drive. And I know I need to leave before 30 minutes before it starts, but I'll always be leaving at past and be like running in the door, bang on, or just have to.
Because it's like 30 minutes without traffic or 30 minutes on that particular day, but like no consideration of all the other things that could come up.
Yeah. Or even just getting out the door. If I ever sit down, it's the worst thing I'll ever do. If there's something to do, because suddenly a lot of time has passed and I don't even realise it's done it.
Do you ever have the thing where I'll suddenly decide that I can do something in that little window of time that I have before I have to leave the house to be at something? So a really good example is Nicole always thinks that she can paint her nails when she's about to leave the house. Obviously knowing that takes time, you can mess it up and then they need to dry, but that will be totally fine in the next 2 minutes. So I always do that. I will always be like, I'm just going to send this one message, or I'm just going to check this one email. And then actually, you're completely late, but you don't seem to be able to gauge, how long that task is going to take. Kate, are you time blind AF?
I am, and I feel like I'm better with it in the sense of not that I'm any better really with my timekeeping, but I'm a little bit more self-compassionate about it. I realised as well, literally as if it was all part of an equation, my time blindness is completely linked with my procrastination and my perfectionism and the anxiety around it. And because they all work together so harmoniously, it's why something that can seem so trivial for someone looking in, you have no idea about the kind of the toll it takes. And actually, going back to the word contradiction, you are trying so hard to be on time, and the energy and the mental toll that takes, it can come across like you're lazy or you're unmanageable. It looks like you don't care or you don't respect that person that you're meeting.
Or your time is more valuable than anybody else's.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that is such a juxtaposition for me, and I know a lot of ADHDers as well, is that I am, I've spent almost the best part of 40 years people pleasing.
Yes.
And it really doesn't align. If you're a people pleaser, keeping people waiting or looking like, you're not respectful of their time or something like that. And that really affects your inner peace and your self-worth. And
inner what? Inner what?
Inner peace. Yeah, and it is, and also as well, the jokes that come from it, and the RSD that comes with it as well, because as a result of something being something I try so hard with, and also the fact that I'm not just there at home twiddling my thumbs doing nothing, I'm trying to get ahead of myself so I can feel like I've got my ducks in a row, and I'm kind of, desperately trying to keep my head above water. So if it becomes that kind of running joke about, Kate's going to be late, or tapping your watch, that sort of thing, like that it hurts, because people have no idea of how hard you're trying. That I think, how many times have we had well-meaning but infuriating advice and tips? We're not stupid. If someone says something about setting your alarm a little bit earlier, or why don't you just leave 10 minutes before or something, and you think, do you not think I have tried this a million times, or I've had the best intentions? It doesn't work.
It's the other symptoms that bulldoze in. That's a great idea. If only I could find my shoes. Do you know what I mean? Which should be by the door, because that's where they live. But for some reason today, I've gone to put my shoes on and they no longer exist. And actually, they do. They were right in front of me, but I was so stressed about not being late for you that I tore apart my entire house and still couldn't see the shoes right in front of me because of object impermanence. It all has this knock-on effect, and it is absolutely infuriating. And I am very tired, but when you said they can't see how hard we're trying, or it looks like we're not trying, or it looks like we don't care, like it really actually physically hurt me a little bit inside. It's like, that is it. That is exactly it. And it's so funny because obviously there are so many people that I have had the privilege of meeting, speaking to, or being in touch with online throughout these last 3 years of doing all things ADHDAF. But like before it, I really did think that I was the only person that felt this way. And still, even now, 3 years on, these words, these shared experiences, it has so much meaning. It has so much, there's so much in it.
I don't think anyone's ever said anything necessarily to me about it, but internally I've been like, I'm so awful, like I've made this person wait, and I'm like anxiously texting them, like, I'm on my way, I'm only this amount of minutes away or whatever, and it's like I've put the shame on myself a lot, and it's this anxiety. It's like a big ball of anxiety the whole time, because you know you're keeping someone.
100%. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, if somebody is pissed off with you, they'll tell you off. Not nice, but it is what it is. But when you are the one that's self-flagellating, how do you stop? You do just carry it around with you, that shame and that anxiety and that worry. It's a really tricky one. Go on, Kate, dive into your notes. Tell me what else you've written down.
Wow. What?
For this unprepared chinwag, tell me.
You've got my highlighter. One thing that I still fantasize about, right?
Youngblood. Sorry.
No, this will be really anticlimactic now. I'll be like tumbleweed of things. I still feel that the answer to all my problems, I know, drum roll, is if I had...
If you say planner, I'm closing my laptop.
No. It's from the 90s TV show Bernard's Watch. If I had Bernard's Watch, my life would be so much easier. And I think, I imagine Bernard's Watch probably does come into my head pretty much most weeks. And I really do think, if I could just pause time, I could do all the things that I want to do. And then you'd be able to do, on top of it, you'd be able to rest, and you could do your self-care and everything. And I would just be winning at life. And I guess part of my acceptance is I need to realise that that's never going to be an option. Before I understood why our brains work the way they do, well, I even considered at one point, would it be easier if I just didn't make social arrangements? Because at least then I wouldn't be letting people down, because the toll that it would take then. I just thought, okay, well, yes, I would miss, the connection and that sort of thing, but it was that hard, and it was that frustrating with that wrecking ball internally. That is, I have had those.
Protect yourself from the feeling of letting people down. 100%. I understand that. This whole thing is why ADHDAF Plus Charity has a very relaxed approach to timings. So, we're going to start whatever time the group says is an ish, whatever time it ends is an ish. And if you need to leave early, come late, whatever, we really, really genuinely do not mind at all. There is no judgment. So please, nobody tie yourself in knots. If you're running for the bus, if you can't find your shoes, like me, if you get, whatever it is, just come as you are, whatever time you get there, and leave whenever you need to get there. And also, please give us the grace to run a little bit late or a little bit on or whatever, because we have to have that compassion and have that ish on the end of our times. Please and thank you. But yeah, sorry, carry on, Kate. No.
Oh, I will pause to see if Beth has anything on her list.
Do you have a list as well?
But Laura, this is a perfect example of how, again, we can all connect and we get on so well, but we have our different ways of doing it, and I think also as well, that's why it also works really well as together as well. But it is funny because instantly you're very sort of fluid, just like, honestly, it's just, just a regular, chat, and we'll just cover everything. And I totally get that. But I think because of those other bits that have already popped up, the perfectionism and stuff like that, you would probably feel less yourself if you had, almost for better words, like a script in front of you. That would probably feel like that would make you feel more stressed. Me, just knowing I've got that made me feel like I've got that. I hate that feeling of mind blanks, or especially when it's something you really care about,
Or you missed a really important point. Definitely. I think for me, pressure of getting it wrong is a thing. And I know that I can go on, and I know my impulsivity and everything else can take things on very random side quests. So I think sometimes keeping it loose takes the pressure off me. But I understand that some people like yourself would need more structure to feel safer, whereas I feel safer without any, just to for it to be all right, because otherwise I'll be like, did I do it right? Did I do it right?
Yeah. This is what I think is so interesting, is actually they both come down to the same point.
100%.
Not getting it wrong and feeling comfortable, feeling safe. And yeah, it just shows. Very good segue into the this is how our traits and relatability, they might not always come out in the same way, but often there's a lot of relatability
100%.
from our behaviours and our feelings.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a real crossover.
Go on, Beth, read us the list before me and Kate talk ourselves into a stupor.
My list is not anywhere near as comprehensive, I have to say. It was just a few things.
Is it colour coded, please?
Mine's got Bernard's watch on. No judgment.
I totally relate to Kate's perfectionism, not wanting to get things wrong. But then as a side of that, I just end up procrastinating everything. I think I procrastinate every task in life, but especially if I'm worried about getting something wrong. And then I don't realise how, if it's something that's a bit of work or something due a month away, and I'll worry about it that whole month, but not do anything until I have that deadline looming. And then it's like, oh, I've got to actually try and do this. And then I've made a lot more work for myself because I've just worried about it and left it.
And the worrying is exhausting.
Yeah,
it's exhausting. I used to stay up all night worried about not doing my homework instead of just doing my homework. But in my head, all of that worry was the work. I'd almost convinced myself that I was doing it, but I hadn't put pen to paper. It's exhausting worrying about it.
That's so interesting. I was lying in bed this morning thinking about exactly that with when I would be, ruminating about coursework or revision, 20 plus years ago, and thinking, and for the toll that from the worry and the stress, thinking, I mustn't let this happen again, or my next project or my next thing. And of course, deja vu, exactly the same thing happening again. and yeah, because it is, and that's the thing about a bit like what we were saying with the people pleasing, for how much you're worrying, how much you care, it doesn't make sense.
There's a phrase that came up in my mind when you were talking then about, I had a conversation with James Brown the other day, and I was talking about how I've massively overcommitted in August. There's like 6 enormous things all happening at once in the same month, back to back to back. And I was laughing, but I said to James, I was like, nobody would do this to themselves. Nobody would choose to do that to themselves. I genuinely couldn't keep track of the dates, couldn't figure it out in my mind. And all of those things sounded like a good idea at the time. You know, that is the perfect example of the condition. Is just like all of this stuff, this procrastination, the amount of stress that you're talking about, Beth, like having to wait till the deadline is literally breathing down your neck. Nobody would choose to do that. Nobody. Ever. Sorry, carry on.
One of the things was like coping strategies. I don't know if mine are particularly healthy coping strategies, but pretty much every room in our house has a clock in it. I might not ever look at it, but there's a clock in there, including every tractor outside has a clock, which was actually my other half that put them in, but we're both pretty bad at keeping time. So there's just like a little analog clock so we can look and see what time it is if we need to be somewhere. I use Google Maps all the time, even if I know where I'm going. And I use the arrive by time.
Yes.
And then
live by that.
Work back from that, but also like use Google Street View to work out the parking situation because there's nothing more stressful than if you can't get parked. But it doesn't always go to plan, obviously. Yeah, I basically just overthink the whole thing and then I'm probably still late anyway. But yeah, the clocks and the tractors is quite useful.
I think that's brilliant. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, as we've already said, there are periods of life where you would make yourself extra early, right? And there are so many people that still use that. Like when I do events, there will be people that will turn up an hour early just to make sure, you know. And so it just goes to show once again how different we all are. So it really always boils down to looking at your unique struggles and your unique life circumstances. You know, like you are a farmer, Beth. Most people listening, I'm assuming, probably won't have tractors, but where could you have clocks? You know, it's a good point. I spend a lot of time just walking around like, what time is it? What time is it? Like if I don't have my phone in my hand, I'm like, what time is it? Got the time? Got the time?
I definitely need to put a clock in my bathroom. I think I don't know, it seems to be a vortex of time.
It's a complete vortex. We've got one legendary community member whose most ADHD thing is always like, went into the bathroom to brush my teeth, came out 2 hours later. Like, have you got any hacks, Kate?
Well, I've definitely got some more things on my list for you. I feel like knowing about ADHD, like I wouldn't use it just as an excuse for being late, but I feel like it is an explanation and it is a reason for why it's such a struggle for me. So I don't feel like it's a get out jail free card to not try your very best, to be on time and to be respectful. And I would always apologize if I've left someone waiting because, you know, it's to be respectful of that.
I think the key word there is try, because it's such a complicated word. Because as we've just said, trying our hardest can still sometimes look like we're not trying at all, because there are internal battles, that exhausting worrying. There is, you know, all of this stuff like, why didn't you just set an alarm? Why didn't you just put your shoes by the door? Why didn't you just, because all of those things make it look like we're not trying. And that's where it is that explanation, is that actually if people can have the awareness, have the understanding of the complexities of the condition, then it's not an excuse to not try. It is an explanation for when you have tried.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an excuse in the sense of there is an official reason.
Yeah.
It's about the trying still, so that the person that I've kept waiting or something, that they know that I care. I will try my hardest to be accountable, you know. Yeah. Some kind of coping strategies, the things that will work for me won't do anything for another person. I'm old school. I use a diary, a paper diary still.
Yes.
There's something that helps me about writing something physically rather than typing. Alongside the diaries, my life is ruled by lists. One thing that I've tried to do more recently is to break tasks down on my list to get a bit more of a grasp of a realistic time that they might take, breaking it down into even more little baby steps.
Do you know how long it takes you to get ready?
No.
So wherever I'm going, I'll figure out how long it's going to take me to get there, and then I need an hour. It probably doesn't take me an hour, but I've always allocated that hour to get ready. She says, sat here in her dressing gown 25 minutes later.
But that's because you're at home.
Just give yourselves an hour, girls.
Say I'm meeting a friend, might go with, no makeup or whatever. I genuinely think that, so therefore, I need 5 minutes just to get washed and dressed. And it isn't 5 minutes. And my poor husband, the amount of times he hears, just coming, 1 minute, but I'll be 5 minutes, 5 minutes.
Nick says I always say, right, I'm ready. And that is like the 10-minute curtain call.
Oh, yeah.
Because I will just need to find one more thing, and I just need to do this, and I can't find the keys. I just might have one last emergency wee before we leave. And it's literally like, yeah, okay, that means when you say you're ready, that is at least 10 minutes to go.
I feel so seen. That's so interesting.
Can I add as well, actually, thinking about allocating time to tasks, I sometimes over allocate time to tasks, which makes them feel too big to tackle. So my win of this week, what day is it? Yeah, my win of this week is that I've straightened my hair. And I haven't been able to, not that it matters, but I just prefer having my hair straight if I'm going to events and things. I just feel I look a bit more polished. When I've got ringlets, I feel like I'm diving Laura, beach bum person. I don't feel very together. So I haven't managed to find the motivation. Oh my God, I have to tell you this. Right, hang on 1 minute. I haven't been able to find the motivation to straighten my hair for about 6 weeks, because in my head, it was going to take me hours and hours, and I had too many other important tasks that I needed to get done to allocate that time. So the other night, I was like, it's now or never, straighten your hair. I washed it and blow dried it. Oh my God, it literally took like half an hour. It didn't even take that long. In my head, it was like a 2.5 hour, 3 hour marathon, thinking for some reason that I'm, 12 years old using Babyliss steam straighteners from the 90s or something. Do you know what I mean? Like making my hair curly as I'm straightening it. Like literally, no, I've got good hair stuff. I can straighten my hair in half an hour. It's really not that big of a deal. I have to tell you this now, because this is absolutely ridiculous. So I joked with Kim Pierpoint, oh God, I'm so unmotivated with self-care this month. I hope that isn't because the topic of this month's support groups is motivation, and that whenever we pick a topic that I'm then going to extremely struggle in that area. And I was 25 minutes late to the Time Blindness meeting. Can we go really easy on the topics going forward? Because whatever it is, I'm going to have it with bells on. Do you have that, Beth? Do you think that it's like a time allocation problem where it makes something feel so much more enormous than it is?
I think that's probably why I procrastinate a lot of things, because I just think that something will take hours, and then I'll put it off for months, and then it's like 5 minutes. That's all it took to do that. It's like I've got my accounts. They need to be put together, and I've probably done the most of it, and it's just the last little bit, and I'm just putting it off. And it's it'll be something that'll take like not long at all, and I'll have it in my head that it's going to take all day. So I'll need to wait till I've got a free day to do it.
Another coping strategy or hack is surrounding yourself with supportive people who get you, are forgiving, understanding, who can maybe alter the time in their heads if necessary. And if someone isn't forgiving of that, and they make, say, little passive aggressive digs or something like that, maybe reevaluating if they're a healthy person to have in your life. We can be very forgiving and loyal and empathetic as ADHDers, but it's sometimes to a fault where people can take advantage of that.
Yeah, it's that compassion, because at the end of the day, as Beth, the example that you gave of like the pressure that you feel in yourself, even if somebody isn't giving you a hard time, you're giving yourself a hard time. So if we're already beating ourselves up, the last thing we need is people in our lives that are going to make us feel bad for literally a neurodevelopmental condition. This is why it's so complex, is that somebody is allowed to be pissed off if you're late. They are allowed to be. It's just that they're not allowed to attack your character for it. Do you know what I mean? They can be pissed off that you're late and be like, oh, that's so frustrating because we've missed this thing, or you let me down, or whatever. Like, that is valid and allowed. And that is the accountability that you were talking about, Kate. But it's like, you know, if somebody was to imply that you're not trying, that you're useless, that you're uncaring, that you're this or you're that, like, we don't need it, we don't deserve it, and you're absolutely right, you shouldn't be around people that are not prepared to be compassionate. Yeah.
And I think now that we know what we know, I've got less capacity to be forgiving of those, you know, if someone does make a throwaway comment or something like that. Now that we know, when we used to feel like it was because we were a bit, you know, useless and pathetic, I would be more likely to kind of think, yes, no, I am. And
yeah, you're right. Oh, they found me out.
Yeah. And but now, for say if there's someone, I know, I have stepped back from a couple of things, because when I've bared all and explained these things that and you know, I'm trying, if you're kind of, again, if I rocked up and didn't apologize or kind of acknowledge that yeah, someone waited or whatever, absolutely. But I think it's about giving people you love a bit of grace. And if you can't, then that says a lot. On a different note, when I'm booking an appointment now, I will now book a time that I know that I can actually manage. And so I'm better whilst obviously we want to get things over and done with because we know they're looming, I know that
realistically speaking, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get yourself in that office, guy.
So that's it. Yeah. And so I think it's about being almost being kinder to yourself and compassionate, is actually knowing what you can realistically do. And it makes it a little bit easier for us. So actually, is it easier for you is there certain times of the day where it's easier for appointments? We're so used to trying to shape shift around other people, but what actually makes your life easier?
100%.
Yeah, I think body doubling super helps, because I think we can feel very lonely inside our heads, in our little busy brains. Feel like when you've shared that with someone, it kind of, that helps alleviate that. But yeah, I think it's just going back to that accepting and the understanding of why we are the way we are. Yes, we forget, which trips us up again and again. But just to try and reprogram that way we speak to ourselves, it's 100%. So much easier said than done. But it's one of those ones that I think a little bit like muscle memory. We've got so used to when we're in a flap or running behind or something, then the self-berration kicking in.
I know this, and I know this to be true because of all of the events that I've done in the past, is that there will be people sat there thinking, well, that's all well and good, but I don't have anybody that I can body double with. I don't have anybody that I feel safe to talk to about ADHD, or I have spoken to family or friends and they think it's a bloody trend because of the mainstream media, or they think, you know, all of this stuff. But please know that is exactly, well, one of the many reasons why these in-person peer support groups exist, is to get you people that do get it, that can help you, that you can reach out to. And that works twofold, because when you're talking about that self-compassion, and it's not easy, it's really, really, as talked about, that wounds, those battle scars of a lifetime of not knowing. We don't know how to go easy on ourselves. We don't know how to do that. You know, I'm 3 years down the line and I'm still really, really working on it. But one of the things that I have found most useful is in connecting with other people like me and giving them compassion in situations where they have been late, for example, is when you start to be able to see yourself as them. That's, for me, is where that compassion, and I'm definitely not all the way there by a long way, but I can see it and I think, well, Kate does that. Beth does that. I spoke to Ruth, I spoke to Kim, I spoke to whoever when they had that situation. And actually, I know we shared the same condition. So even though I still feel like I want to beat myself up for it, I know that I would not speak to any of you the way that I am internally speaking to myself. So it doesn't make it go, but the awareness is there and the effort is there, if that makes sense.
If someone in your life had someone constantly drip feeding negative comments to them all day, every day, you're not good enough, why aren't you faster, why aren't you doing this, why aren't you that, you'd be like, that is an abusive relationship. So
100%.
do not be in an abusive relationship with yourself, basically.
Well, in all the ridiculous words that we could have just spun round in circles, Kate, Beth just walks in and drops the fucking mic on the pair of us.
Oh,
Mic drop from Beth.
See, some of those people, an observer, and then they just come in with a really cool quip. And you think, yes,
don't be in an abusive relationship with yourself. Oh my God.
An hour and a half later, could have got it all in that sentence.
And now I resign and Beth takes the helm as ADHDAF podcast host. Thank you, Beth. No, it's true. That's proper pearls, that. Yeah. So what we're saying in a nutshell, and often it is the same thing again and again and again, but, routines are hard, and sometimes we find the answer and we forget it, oftentimes. So again and again, it really does come down to that self-inventory. What does time blindness look like for you? Where do you struggle with time? Are you lost in time? Are you anxious about time? Is it flying by you, or are you stuck in waiting mode? Are you procrastinating? Do you know how long it takes you to get out the door? How does this impact your life? How does the symptom of time blindness impact your life? And when you figure it out, when you start to see those patterns, and as we've said, it won't just be time blindness, object impermanence, etc., perfectionism will all play into this to create these struggles. You look at how it's presenting individually in you, and you figure out ways to best support yourself, leaning into community and trying to show yourself compassion. And we invite anybody in the Ayrshire area, in the Bristol area, to come along to Beth and Kate's groups in September. We've also got groups in Aberdeen, Edinburgh, London, Birmingham, Manchester, Oxford. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. And we have more coming very, very soon. Go to ADHDAFplus.org.uk, where you will find the information about all of our groups. There will also be a blog there, which I fully intend to write today. And God knows how long it will take me, but I'll let you know, and then we can start to gauge how long it actually takes me to write a blog. And at each group, all attendees will be given a link, resources, just some little takeaways to kind of help you think a bit more on the topic when you leave, to reiterate some of the themes covered, and to signpost to some support. I just want to thank you so much for speaking to me late in my dressing gown, in my bedroom, ranting nonsense, when, really my head and my heart are still with Mel C in the field in Flaxstock last night, who did a mashup of Faithless Insomnia with Spice Girls Wannabe. Are you joking me? It was absolutely iconic. I cannot cope. Gosh, I really was hyperactive that day. Rather exhausted, actually, but seemingly that nervous energy is how my exhaustion tends to play out. Thank you for listening to my ridiculousness. If you found this episode helpful, I would be so grateful if you could hit those stars or write a review or a comment on Spotify, as all will help this pirate radio podcast get heard in a sea of big mega yachts full of ADHD captains Speaking of pirates, the cover artwork of this episode was taken from the ADHDAF Emporium grand finale of House of Wings' incredible fashion event, the Blackpool Style Assembly. The event, which alongside showcasing local and neurodivergent talent whilst boycotting fast fashion, raised £992 in ticket sales, all of which House of Wings generously donated to ADHDAF Plus Charity. So enormous thanks to House of Wings and all involved in that amazing day. I also want to say thanks again to all involved in the big ADHD fundraiser. This monumental challenge has raised almost £15,000 for ADHD Adult UK and ADHDAF Plus Charity. The charity inspired by the work of this podcast, for which I am founder and supporter of, but as it stands, all things ADHDAF are entirely separate entities. I use the podcast to promote the peer support groups each month, of which this month they are in 8 locations, 2 in Scotland and 6 in England, kicking off tomorrow, Tuesday the 2nd of September, and running for the first 2 weeks of the month. Please head to the link in the show notes to find out about your local free ADHDAF Plus charity peer support group to connect and empower ADHD adults of marginalised genders. Once you're there, you can sign up for email reminders, and if there isn't a group local to you yet, you can even apply to volunteer to start your own. And if you would still like to donate to the Big ADHD fundraiser, you can find a link to their brand new website to help Darren hit that 15k with his solo cycle to Brighton. I hope you've enjoyed this ridiculous chinwag about time blindness and that some of our rambles have resonated. If so, please hit those stars and give it a share, as all will help raise ADHD awareness and signpost to the charity support groups. The team are getting incredible feedback from group attendees, so I want to get the word out about them so that more ADHD adults can get to go. But also, I really want to zig a zig. ADHD.